I'm making this video in response to something Rich from DeBoss Garage posted in his last video. Autonomous and electric cars. In Rich's video, he touched on a few points about autonomous cars, and one of them was there's a lot of skill involved in driving a car. The person driving has to make decisions, and there are instances where you have to make very fast decisions. I'll put a scenario to you. You're driving your car down the road and it's quiet, and coming towards you on the other side of the road is a cyclist. Minding his own business, he's out for a ride. So you can imagine the situation. You're doing 30 miles an hour down the road. There's a cyclist cycling towards you at maybe 10 miles an hour. And all of a sudden, a child runs out in front of you chasing a ball. You've got a decision to make now. That decision is, do you hit the child? Do you avoid the child? Do you hit the cyclist to save the child's life? That's your decision. Everybody's going to react different. I'd react by trying to save the child's life and hoping I could avoid the cyclist at the same time. But the chances are I'm going to clip that cyclist. So you've made a decision. Save the child's life, sacrifice the cyclist. That was your choice. That was my decision. Now, you look at it, you're in your autonomous car in the same situation. Driving down the same road, the same cyclist coming towards you, same child runs out in front of you, chasing its ball. You're now out of the decision-making loop. The car has to make a choice. But somebody has had to program that car. So, in the event of the car deciding it's going to hit the cyclist for the sake of saving the child, who is to blame for the accident? Is it you for being in the autonomous car, or the person who programmed the car? It's a really hard decision to make for whoever programs these autonomous cars. That's just a scenario I thought I'd throw at autonomous cars. Somebody has to still make decisions in instances like that. As a driver, you make the decision. As a passenger in an autonomous car, a computer program makes the decision. So, have a think about that one. It's something I couldn't live with hitting the child. I couldn't live with hitting the cyclist. In either situation, me being in charge or the car being in charge. It's a really, really hard decision to make for somebody or something. There was another point Rich picked up on, and I agree with him totally, was to do with autonomous cars again, where you get into your car and you say, I want to go to Walmart, to Tesco's, to the Asda Superstore. So you get in your car, You sit in your car and the car takes you there, and the chances are it's going to be GPS guided. It will obey all the speed limits, it will keep safe gaps between you and the car in front, and you'll get to wherever you're going. The car will park itself and you'll go off and do whatever you've got to do. It takes a massive skill away from us, that does. A decision-making skill. And the skill we're losing is we have choices as humans as to which way we go. We could go numerous ways to the shopping mall, to Asda, to Walmart. We could take a 20-mile trip and go scenic. We could take a 5-mile trip because we haven't got the time to get there. The autonomous car is always going to go the quickest and the simplest route. Again, it's taken a decision-making process away from us. Another skill Rich has touched on is GPS. We all use it. We all use it to our advantage. I use it. But I don't use it all the time. Because GPS does make mistakes. GPS can take you the most peculiar ways to places. It's not always the safest route. It might be the shortest route, but it's not the safest route. But we're relying on the technology again for it to take us there. We're losing the skill of, again, making a decision. When I first started driving back in the mid-1980s, it's now 2017, almost 2018, we didn't have GPS. And if I wanted to go somewhere in another part of the country, knowing I was going there, a couple of days before, I'd get the atlas out. And I'd study the atlas. And I'd pinpoint where I was going and where I was starting from. I'd then go and create a route on the map. And then I'd sit there with a pad and I'd write the route down. And it would be something like, leaving Colwyn Bay, get onto the A55, follow the A55 until I got to the Chester Bypass, exit onto Chester Bypass, follow Chester Bypass until I got to the M56, follow the M56 until I got to the junction with the M6 and take the south exit. So now I'm travelling down the country towards the Midlands, towards London. At some point on the M6 I'd need to take a junction off. So on my pad I would have junction 19. And then I would have on my map, i.e. Knutsford, and the instructions would carry on like that until I got to the town I was going to, where the instructions would get a little bit more precise. I'd be looking for road names. I'd be stopping at road junctions, looking for road signs. And that's how we navigated. Nowadays, you type a postcode into your GPS. You tell it the house number on the street that you're going to. You press go. You're given a couple of options. Fast, short, economic. So you choose. And you just drive your car, totally unaware of where you're going, where you've been, and you trust that GPS. We're losing the skill to read maps. Maps are great. Absolutely brilliant. Love maps. Still use them. I tend to use them nowadays, not in my car, unless the GPS cannot pinpoint a house, where I will get an Ordnance Survey map out and go looking for the name of a farm that I'm going to, because I can pretty much guarantee every farm in a rural area will be on your Ordnance Survey map. I might combine the GPS with the map, put the postcode in, because in a rural area, a postcode or a zip code, as it is in America, could cover 30 houses, and it might be on different roads. So I'll get to the centre point on the that the GPS has sent me to, and then I will get the map out, knowing where I am on the GPS, and I will go and find the property I'm looking for. You can combine both skills, GPS and map. But a lot of people don't do that. They rely on their GPS. They're losing a massive skill, map reading. The other problem with autonomous cars, they're going to be electric. This brings into, for me, a massive, massive problem. It's called range anxiety. Most electric cars that the likes of me can afford are not the £70,000 Teslas. I can't afford one of them when it's 300-mile range. Also, a Tesla wouldn't suit what I want to use a car for, it's too big. I'd have to look at something like a Nissan Leaf, a Golf E, one of the little BMW electric cars, because they're small hatchbacks. That's what I need, small hatchback type of car. Because I live in a rural environment with lots of country lanes, lots of little tight bends, and if I make a mistake, somewhere I've got to turn round. I couldn't turn a big car round in a lot of the instances. Little hatchbacks, I can do that. Let's get back to the range anxiety. I've got experience of an electric car. Before I bought the car I'm driving now, I was thinking seriously about buying an electric car. And the only electric car I really was going to consider was going to be the Nissan Leaf. And they just bought out the version that they were claiming would do 120 miles. That wouldn't be a problem for me, day in, day out, using a car as I use a car. I'm normally averaging 60 to 70 miles a day. So theoretically, that Nissan Leaf could do my day's work and leave me a 50-mile range on the battery. But once a week I have a long journey to make, and that one long journey is a 70-mile round trip. And then I still have to go and do the rest of my day's work. So I've done my 70 miles on my long trip, then I have somewhere between 50 and 70 miles still to do. I think if you work the maths out for yourself, I've run out of battery. So that would not work for me. But what stopped me buying the Nissan Leaf was, I took one off the local Nissan dealer for a 2-day test drive. It came to me fully charged. The day I picked it up, I had my 70-mile round trip to make. So I thought nothing of it. I went off. Did me 35 miles to where I was going, and it was all motorway, and it was all done on the cruise control at 70 miles an hour, where I could do 70. I'm afraid I failed to complete the trip coming home. I was 15 miles short of getting home. Yeah, the car did not get me home. It left me stranded on a motorway. That heavily disappointed me in the range that car could do. That really threw range anxiety as a definite no-no for buying a pure electric car. So I didn't want to buy a straight petrol car. I definitely didn't want to go and buy a diesel. So I started looking at what I've bought now. I've got a hybrid. I bought a Toyota hybrid. You've got some of the advantages of an electric car. You've got all of the advantages of a petrol or diesel powered car. But the biggest one for me is I have no range anxiety. If I want to go somewhere and I've got 300 miles to do, I go and fill it up with petrol. I do my journey, some of it on electric, some of it on petrol. I then drive home. I get home, I've got no petrol left. Oh, that's not a problem. I can go and fill it back up with petrol again. If I was to do that journey in an electric car, I'd probably get 70, 80 miles, have to stop, plug it in, if I could find a charging point, sit there for a couple of hours, carry on with my journey, stop again, couple of hours. What could have been, in the hybrid or a petrol or a diesel car, a 3-hour journey has now turned into an entire day. I'm afraid at this moment in time, with the technology we've got with the batteries, electric cars do not work in a rural environment like I live in. Let's throw another scenario at you. You drive an electric car. You've done your day's work. You've done 70 miles, pottering about. You get home, your car is telling you you've got 10 miles of battery left. So you plug it in. At some point in the evening, one of the kids comes home and they've injured themselves playing football. You take one look at that child and you think, I need to get this child to emergency services. You're not going in your electric car. Your hospital's 20 miles away. You're not going to get there. The car's only been on charge for an hour. There might be now enough range to get you to the hospital, but you're not getting home afterwards. Your car's now stuck. So, I'm afraid for me, electric cars are a no-no. The other thing autonomous cars, stroke electric cars take out of it for me is the fact I'm not in control. My driving licence cost me a lot of money when I started to learn to drive. All the driving lessons, learning the skills, to be able to drive on my own, to take a driving test, to earn my licence. I enjoy driving. I've always enjoyed driving. Up until I bought the hybrid, I've always driven manual. There's something about being in control of that car. You choose the gear, you choose how fast you're going, you put the steering inputs in, you choose when to brake. All this is going to get taken away from you. Autonomous car will do everything for you. You're going to lose a massive skill set. You're going to lose the ability to be able to do 2 or 3 things at the same time, which you do when you're driving. You're watching what you're doing. You're steering, you're accelerating, you're braking, you're changing gear. You do all this without thinking about it. It's something you learn to do. It's a skill. You're going to lose that skill when you get into your car that's going to do it all for you. And I feel really sorry for the generations. Not my generation, the next generation who are going to be driving. But they're not going to be driving, are they? They're just going to be passengers in vehicles. They're just going to get in, say, car, take me to school, car, take me to work, and they're going to sit there. And they're going to read the paper. No, they're not going to read the paper. They're going to have their tablets or mobile phones. They're going to have internet connection in the car. They're going to sit on their phones. And they're not going to be aware of what's going on around them, what's happening. And it's just a shame. It's a real shame. They're not going to be able to enjoy cars as we've enjoyed them. And I totally agree with you, Rich, what you've said in your video. If you don't mind, I'm going to link your video into the description of mine so people can watch your video as well. This is just my reaction to your video, Rich. which I hope people pick up on, hope people watch, and I hope they also watch your videos. You've made a lot of good points. And I really hope a lot of other people react to your video, because it deserves reacting to. Anyhow, I've had my rant, I've had my ramble. Thanks very much. And it's nearly 2018, so Happy New Year. Bye. Goodbye 2017.